Howdy, Murray Lorden here from MUZBOZ Games, just doing a bit of a random update on Romero / CyberDruid 3000, whatever this game is called, I'm not sure yet. What I'm doing is I'm kind of getting started on turning this from a prototype into my game. So it's kind of rough and ready the way it is. There's some basic systems in place, some basic level design, just using modular assets, but I'm up to the point where I really need to start figuring out my full list of entities like doors and triggers and stuff that I'm going to make, and figuring out how to make level designs that are cool and a quick way to make levels. So So what I've been doing is I used to do sort of Quake level editing back in the late 90s, so I want to look back at, I started to look back at Quake editing and sort of got sucked back into looking at this editor called TrenchBroom, which is cool. It's sort of a modern editor made by a guy in Berlin, and it lets you model with some nice sort of modeling tools, even at the vertex level, and splitting the meshes and stuff. So I started to look at that just for I was like, okay, they've got triggers and doors and basic ways to hook all these things up, lights and things. So in the act of looking at just how that worked as reference, I sort of ended up back on a sort of Quake editing Discord and wanting to make a level. I saw that there's still a lot of people who make levels. A lot of people who like to play these levels, people who do videos of them, and one of the cool things is they have like little mini Quake jams or game jams where you get a theme and maybe 2 weeks or a month to make a level. So one just got announced called Underwater Jam, so I thought I would use that as an excuse to put a level together with the theme of underwater, so it has to be pretty water based, and you can use this thing called extras, which is sort of some extra entities or hacked in sort of items like rising and lowering water, which can be triggered, some explosive things. So I thought I'd give that a go, as well as adding a bunch of my own custom sounds and things. The extras also has these drips.
Sorry about that break in transmission, folks. We had some undesirables get through the perimeter. Speaking of undesirables, it may be undesirable to stay on Earth because the whole thing is going to implode, or at least that's what the government tells you. You want to believe that?
So I've just been getting the hang of the tools. There's these sparks and explodable items. I've made some things like that water go up and down. You can shoot that right there, and that part of it's an exploding box. And just generally getting used to how the tools work again. So I'm hoping that by the time I finish this level, it'll be a fun little Quake level. And also that I'll have a sort of a feel for like how quick it is to make rooms, and like what I like about the TrenchBroom editor that I could try to emulate in Unity with my own game. Whether that will probably rely on using things like Pro Builder to hopefully sort of be able to build stuff as quickly as you can build it in this. So what's kind of cool about TrenchBroom is you can quickly build a brush like this. You can drag it up and down by holding shift and sort of selecting the edges. You can quickly jump over to the editor, the textures, and you can just search the textures easily, load in different people's WODs of textures, very quickly like apply different textures. So that's pretty cool. I definitely want to be able to do some quick building and texturing in my game. I'll probably keep the structures of the level quite simple, a bit like Quake was. And you can also pick a side and just apply textures to that. And if you were, say, putting this on it, you can also then use the arrow keys to move it, or control and the arrow keys to move things just a little, so try to kind of line things up like this. You can shift click on there and then hold down Alt and apply it to different faces. You can fly around, the same as in Unity, with the sort of right click WASD controls. You can also just select this brush and use the clip tool and draw between verts and see the two sides, and if you go Control Enter, you can toggle between, like, do I want to keep just that brush, just this brush, or both brushes, and hit Enter to make the split. Now there's two different brushes. You can just press Escape to get out of a tool. Grab this guy, you can arrow key that around, and you can use the numbers along the top of your keyboard to change the grid size, or you can do it up here, and then move things along on the grid size. So if you want to whiz it over, this is just using the arrow keys based on your view. So up is like away from you, and if I face this way, up is away from me that way. And you can hold down Alt and left click drag it up and down. So if you go 8, I can quickly move it over there. I can go Control U to zoom in on that object, a bit like you'd often press F in Unity. So you can zoom that around. You can go Control D to duplicate it and arrow key it over there, or you can go Control D and just drag it away. You can go R to rotate and grab it by this handle for the blue axis. You can move with the arrow keys on the grid however big you want, where you want the rotation point to be, to rotate that somewhere. You can, so yeah, that's pretty cool. You can, I think, go V for vertex mode and move that, and it'll even split things for you, and it sort of stops you from making illegal geometry. It'll keep it convex for you. So that's pretty cool. You can do organic sort of, you know, if that's just a broken bit of roof or something. I want to do some stuff where I have like bits of the roof explode and then a bit falls down, probably using a door. There's these ambient sounds for quickly adding an ambient sound, and you can even add your own custom WAVs. So I'm trying to do a fair bit of custom sounds because I like custom sounds. What else is cool about it? There's a trigger, and just setting up those is fairly straightforward. You can just target a name of another object, voice 1, so that targets, this is a sound player with a custom sort of voiceover that I want to do a loudspeaker system, and I've given it a target name of voice 1, so that triggers that. Buttons work the same way. That triggers the water, and the water has a value of 546 height, so it goes up here. When the player goes through this trigger, it triggers this relay, which then the relay triggers flicker light 1, which will start these sparks happening. They're all called flicker light 1. And there's also another relay called flicker light 1, which targets flicker light 2, which is this relay, but also toggles the light behind here on. It's hard to see it. Basically, I wanted it so that you could, this light would spark as the player hit here, sort of going for the best approximation I could of when the water reaches the top, but when the player actually reaches the top, the light that's half submerged starts to spark. Then after a delay, it explodes part of the light and turns off the main light that was there, a constant light, and then through these other two relays sets up a system where it turns on and off another light that was behind that, and that then starts to flicker. So I wanted to try some cool scripting like that, and just thinking about how I would maybe use that sort of stuff in Romero to like get lights doing cool things. And I actually think I can make a lot of my entities in Unity easier to deal with through the interface than the Quake ones. Some of the Quake ones are cool when you just want a trigger to target a light or a sound, but when you start to want something like, if you want to target a light to come on and then flicker, There's issues with, like, there's assumptions about the Quake engine with how it would bake a light, that you can't just have a light come on and have a light style behavior to it. That will draw through the object. But anyway, you have to sort of hack around, where I think once I actually get things going in here, I can do it better. I'm still tossing up whether to use some modular assets or just to do everything in ProBuilder. These were modeled in Maya, but I'd like to, I think, be working more like TrenchBroom, where everything's always sort of editable, a bit more like you would imagine ProBuilder is, where these are all objects and you can throw a texture on them. So it's good reference to do this. So I'm planning to build a level where, for Quake, for Underwater Jam, where you sort of start off, it's almost like maybe you work at the research facility, a bit like Gordon Freeman, a bit of a bad day at the office, and something explodes, and then the water kind of comes in, and maybe over the speaker, I want to work with my friend Brendan Barnett, hopefully on voice acting, where he'll talk about, he'll be like the scientist or the lab, the guy who runs the place or whatever, and he'll be like, something's gone wrong, you got to get out, get to the surface as quickly as possible, and then have some situations where there's maybe water with a sparking light in it, and that will kill you if you go in it, so you have to turn the power off, which then flicks the lights off, and you maybe get some red emergency lights going, but now the water's safe to go through, so you go through the water. But also just making some cool scenarios where there's just fun monster setups and stuff, and it's as if the monsters are sort of teleporting in and invading this base. But in the style of Quake, I think I won't worry too much about trying to keep it sort of believable, like Half-Life or something is sort of more like everything's meant to have a sort of a logic to it. I think I'll also just have it go a bit crazy. But like with monsters maybe popping out of secrets and stuff, which doesn't really make sense if they were invading. But I think I'll try to keep the silver and gold key, which I think I'll use the base style key cards, and have them be fairly logical. So there's like a door that you can't get through, but you have to find the silver key on a dead body of some co-worker or something. But it'll be a bit hacky, I think. So let's have another look at this level, just to see some of those lights and things working again. So yeah, I had this speaker thing going, which just to test how I would maybe have it that when you start the game and something goes wrong and there's an explosion or something falls down, and then over the speaker someone's saying like, something's gone wrong, you've got to get out of there, you've got to get to the surface, and so the water you'll be using water to get to the top and stuff like this. So you shoot that. I don't know quite what I'm actually going to trigger this going up. Kind of want all those lights to like blow up too, but anyway, we'll see. Now there's this thing that starts to flicker when it gets wet. Kind of hoping that some people will shoot that while they're fighting those guys, but it doesn't matter if you don't. And then there's that custom flickering light that I got working. So it's just a relay of sort of turning it on and off. It's a bit dark in here at the moment, but I kind of like the backlit baddies there. Don't know what keeps giving those things. Kind of want it to have a bit of a Half-Life-y vibe. It's like Quake guy in Black Mesa. Fan going on in there. These are a bunch of sounds that I'm using from around the place. Some sort of a dodgy fan in that thing. Uh-oh. So I haven't done much enemy placement yet. Oh, that ended up right over there, did it? That's not what I meant. Some nice textures here. Oops. So on a side note about all this, which is actually kind of why I wanted to make the video, I was just thinking of ways to, like, there's so many dimensions to making a map. You have three-dimensional, like, how do you even draw it? Do you do a top-down map? It sort of starts to fall apart a bit when you start to think, yeah, but how's it, how does the player go up and down? How do lifts and that fit in? So I went through a bit of a process of sort of thinking about, I was doing lots of little sketches of scenarios that I liked in Quake. When I was thinking about sort of what to do with triggers, doors, and all this stuff, lights. So I went through there, and then I just started to make a kind of a short list in my little clipboard of things that I wanted to get in this particular level. And when I was up at the cafe this morning, just kind of trying to think about what am I going to do, what's the structure of this level, how am I going to use the doors or triggers or scenarios to get the player sort of flowing through the level without getting confused but still having interest. And what I'm going to try to do, we'll see how it goes, is put these little kind of elements of the level on little cards and then sort of be able to move them around. Like some of them are things like be able to see a key and sort of from the door where you can't get through, say the silver key door, be able to see, oh, there's the silver key through that window. By that I can see a dead body in there, but I can't get in there, but it looks like that hallway or that door would take me there, so off you go to do that. And then the nice thing about things like that is you can then, when you get the key, you're thinking about the future and you've kind of got these little hooks in your mind. It's not just like following corridors, bam, 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 keep going. You're thinking, okay, I've got the key, now I'm going to go back to the silver door. You're on a bit more of a mission, it's a bit more of a logical space. You're kind of getting used to this environment you're in. So I want to try doing some things like that, but then other ideas might just be things like, it's cool when you sort of go up some stairs and then an ogre will be positioned in a blind spot and they start getting you, they start pinging you from there, or you go up the stairs and then like some doors drop down and enemies are attacking you like from a shooting gallery. And things like that could kind of go anywhere in the level. So there's a lot of ideas about like, oh, it'd be cool to you're at the top of a big tube and you can see it's a long way down, you're going to die, but you press the button and the elevator comes up, and it's just kind of a cool, it's a cool vignette, it's a cool little situation I can imagine. And you can also have a situation like, I think it's in E1M5 Gloom Keep, of the original Quake, where there's a platform at the top with a baddie on it and you're down the bottom, and you can see you want to get up there, but the elevator, there's no way to get it down, and you get it down later once you sort of unlock it, the silver, I think it's the silver key door, and then you finally get to call it down and get up there. So I like that sort of scenario too. So I thought there's a lot of things I'd like to get in, and I could kind of put them in the start of the map or the end of the map. And if I put them all on little cards, then I can sort of arrange them. And some bits are more structural to the game, like to do with where the keys are placed, or, and other things could go anywhere. But if there's a really hard room, I could go, well, I think I'll put that at the end, and I think I'll put this one at the start, and this is just, that could kind of go anywhere. Maybe I'll just, so it's a way to organize these ideas and lay them out, not exactly where they'll be, but sort of in an order, and to see the relationship. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's partly why I'm doing this Quake editing, is I think that's something that I think could be a good technique to take to Romero, the CyberDruid game. If it works here, it could be a cool way for me to work there. I find I write down a lot of different sort of notes and things in clipboards, which I like, but it can then be hard to sort of reorganize them. And obviously you can bust open a Google Doc and put them all in Google Docs, but then you've lost the niceness of paper and being able to sketch things next to some text. You end up with a big Google Doc that's also kind of just got lots of ideas in it, but they're all like lines of text, so you don't get that same sort of nice feeling of like, when you've got a nice sort of page of just sketches like this, they immediately tell you, oh yeah, that's that idea I had about the placement with a monster here and a geometry here or a lift. So I like to have the sketchiness. So I'm thinking that at the point when you've got a lot of ideas, you could sketch them onto little cards, and then they're sort of very quick to remember what they are, and you can lay them out, and sort of it's got a lot of sort of bandwidth to remember and imagine the scenario and move it around. So could be a cool tool, that's what I'm hoping. So yeah, hopefully I'll get my underwater jam map done in 2 weeks, which is due on the 31st of July 2018, and learn something from it along the way.